I wanted to make a quick video to talk about what I think might be one of the most overlooked and underrated benefits of making your own meals, cooking your own meals at home. And this really has to do with the herbs and the spices that you use when you cook, because we don't always shine, the light or put a spotlight on that. We tend to think about, the benefit of cooking at home is that, yes, you have control over maybe the oils you're using, the grains, the vegetables. You get to figure out the proteins and the carbs and the fats and all of those yourself. But when we cook meals, we also use a variety of herbs and spices, and pretty much any herb or spice that you have in your kitchen, pretty much anything that's growing out there, has anti-inflammatory properties, has antioxidants, has all kinds of nourishing and life-saving ingredients. And the thing with herbs and spices is that often you don't need a huge amount of them to get the health benefits from them, right? So I wanted to make this video because we're in my kitchen again, and I wanted to just show you some of the stuff that I have in my kitchen, and also kind of talk you through how I approach buying spices, because quality still matters. Because when we think about it, we always say, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. A lot of these herbs that we use to cook are herbs that, you might be going out to buy also in supplement form. Turmeric is a good example, like very popular. It's used in a lot of meals, but you could also go and buy capsules for turmeric, right? Same thing goes for a lot of other things that we use in cooking. And what I am starting to realize is that often in the West, what we do is we look at populations in other parts of the world. Maybe we look at indigenous populations, for example, right? And we see some of the herbs that they're using, and then we bring them to the West. But then what we do in the West is that we put those in a capsule. We make it into a product. Whereas oftentimes those indigenous populations that we look at and those other cultures that we're looking at, they are just consuming these things day to day. And what's happening is that it is the fact that they are getting small, regular doses of these very healing and nourishing herbs. It's the fact that they get small doses over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of their life. The consistency of being exposed to that will, of course, keep them healthy, because like I said, you definitely don't need a ton. Now, of course, if you've got some medical, if you have a medical issue or you've got something where you really need therapeutic benefits, there is a time and place for capsules, for large quantities of an herbal tea, or for certain amounts of tincture. But for most of our lives, we just want to be able to maintain, right? And the body just does better if we're exposing it to these things on a daily basis. And to me, I think that is really, again, the core of that concept of, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Is like, yes, these herbs are medicinal, they have beneficial properties, but at the end of the day, they are just food. And so let's just focus first on enjoying them. Let's just find the ones that we like and use them regularly, because that's the reason why when you buy something that's store-bought, oftentimes they might put some of these herbs in there, but maybe they put very small quantities. Other times you're buying something and it's not even the real thing, right? Like cinnamon is a good example. You might be buying stuff that has cinnamon, but it's cinnamon flavor. Meanwhile, if you use real cinnamon at home, that is something that is well known for helping with things like, for, let's say, supporting like healthy blood sugar levels. You're not going to get that from the cinnamon flavor, right? So that's a very, very small basic example. And same thing with turmeric, well known for being anti-inflammatory. It's been studied in lots of different ways. And again, the small amount that you put in one meal may not be enough to just get rid of your symptoms overnight. But the whole goal here is, if we want to stay healthy, we want to find ways to make this simple so that it is not, again, it's not work. You're not having to think through this. So while we're in the kitchen, so I've got something like parsley, right? There's lots of different health benefits here. I've got, I've got some paprika. I have got garlic. I'll just show you. I have like a whole container of lots of different bulk herbs. So I prefer to buy my herbs in this form, where I've got some coriander, we've got some cumin, of course the cinnamon that I mentioned, some onion, powder, there is cardamom, turmeric, lots of different things going on in here. Now, to go back to the quality of your herbs, because the quality of your herbs matters. So I rarely buy, I would say, you know, the little glass bottles or the little plastic bottles of herbs, because what I have found personally is that oftentimes the flavor isn't always there. That's been my experience, that sometimes the flavor isn't always there. And I think it's because, you know, these things are really made in a very like large scale. They might be sitting around for a long time, and herbs will lose potency over time. So I've just personally found that when I buy kind of these bulk herbs, that I tend to get better tasting herbs for one. And there is a correlation, let's say, between also how, you know, you can, just by paying attention to how an herb tastes or even its color, there is some correlation between that and the potential like therapeutic benefits, because many of the compounds that give a plant its flavor are also the compounds that give it its therapeutic benefits. So if you buy, you know, I've bought, let's say, like rosemary that was super, super weak. And then when I used it to cook, it was okay. And when I used it to make a tea, it was okay, right? And either it was just not grown well, or maybe it just wasn't harvested at the right time. Maybe it was harvested too early or too late. I don't know. But it just wasn't, let's say, it just wasn't at its peak. And I could pick up on it just based on the flavor. So I have found that when you buy these kind of bulk herbs that are just in these little bags, from what I've read also, that they tend to, I think, make these in smaller batches. So you're also not getting something that's been sitting around for a long time. So that's just why I prefer. So I would just suggest to you that if you really want to simplify things for you when it comes to, you know, keeping your body healthy and not always feeling like you must go buy all these different supplements and take this one and this one of the benefits of getting into the habit of cooking your meals is that you get to use so many of these different herbs, and the regularity of it, your body is going to notice, you know, because like I said, you don't need a lot. Like something like cinnamon, like just a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon gives you a ton of therapeutic benefits. So you don't necessarily need a ton of it to notice differences in your body. And plus, they all just taste good. So just go ahead, play around with these herbs, find the ones that you like, and yeah, just get into the habit of cooking your own meals as much as you can. And the other thing too that I have found with bulk herbs versus the stuff that comes in the bottle is that oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, but sometimes the stuff that comes in the bottle, there are going to be additives. Typically, these are additives that are there to either make the herb flow better. So especially herbs that are in powder form. So anything that's been powdered. So spices, I should say, spices that have been powdered and not so much herbs. Some of them will naturally, you know, just clump together and cake together. And I think that we just live in this world where we just have this ridiculous need to make everything so hyper convenient, and we don't even want to put up with the natural caking or clumping that a spice will do. And so we put these additional things in there. You know, these anti-caking agents is what they call them. And we put them in there to prevent that from happening. Now, you know, whether or not these are preservatives. Now, I'm not going to go on a rant about anti-caking agents, but I'll just say that just my own personal philosophy is that I just want the spice and I don't want all these extras, because those extras are just one more thing that I now have to either think about. Is it good for me? Is it not? So bulk herbs, I have just not run into that with bulk herbs. So another reason why I prefer to buy them. And typically you will spend far less money buying bulk herbs, especially like this, because it's plastic. You're not paying for all the fancy packaging and everything. So oftentimes, cost-wise, you come out ahead. So another benefit. So that's it for this video. I hope you found this helpful. I would love to hear your thoughts when it comes to just, you know, day-to-day cooking, using herbs and spices. Have you considered this as part of the benefits of cooking your food, or do you typically think that the benefits of cooking your own food only comes from some of those bigger ingredients, right? You know, the root vegetables you're using, or the meats that you're using, and do you really pay attention to all of this other goodness that's just sitting in your kitchen waiting for you to benefit from? So I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.